The world is currently designed to harvest your soul through a glowing screen before you even have the chance to fully wake your mind. If you stay until the final second of this broadcast, you will learn how to reclaim your internal empire from the algorithm and finally build a life of cold, calculated power. However, if you choose to turn away now, you are simply signing a contract to remain a background character in someone else's simulation for the rest of 2025. The choice is yours. But remember that silence is often the loudest sound in the hall of a fading legacy. Let us begin by dissecting a very uncomfortable reality that plagues the modern spirit. Have you ever felt that surge of electricity when you tell someone a massive plan, only to find the fire completely disappears a few days later? You announced that you were starting a new project, or you posted a story about your first day back at the gym. In that moment of broadcasting, your brain received the reward before you ever put in the actual work. This is where the masses lose the war of life. Not due to a lack of talent, but because they leak their vital energy through the exhaust pipe of noise. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king of the Roman Empire, once wrote with brutal clarity that we must waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, and instead, simply be one in the hyper-connected landscape of 2025. This teaching translates into a singular command: stop announcing your potential and start manifesting your results in the dark where no one is watching. Look at the patterns of your own day, where you argue with strangers in comment sections or explain your choices to people who have already committed to not understanding you. While you are busy defending your castle of words, someone else is quietly building a fortress of substance. Silence is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate indicator of a controlled and lethal internal state. Most people believe that silence means you have nothing to offer, or that you are hiding in fear of the spotlight. In reality, strategic silence is stored energy, a battery that is being charged for the moment of execution. Deep thinking is not the same as overthinking. It is the deliberate act of sharpening your blade before the battle even begins. Winning quietly is the ultimate luxury, because it allows you to move through the world without being a target for the insecure and the parasitic. The truth of our nature is quite simple. As the loudest person in the room is almost always the most terrified of being ignored, the quietest person is usually the one observing the invisible threads of power, learning the patterns, and waiting for the precise moment to strike. History is written by those who listened more than they spoke, and those who reflected while others were busy chasing applause. Your biggest upgrade this year will not be found in a new motivational speaker or a better planner. It will be found in the cold, hard restraint of your own tongue. We are now going to explore 8 fundamental Stoic principles that will transform the way you navigate the human experience. These tools will teach you how to master your speech, discipline your internal dialogue, and build an undeniable reality without ever seeking external validation. This is not about being a passive observer of your life. It is about becoming a precise architect of your destiny. If you are ready to stop performing for the crowd and start producing for your future self, pay close attention to every word that follows. The first principle you must internalize is that silence is the ultimate form of self-control. Most people have become so shallow that they assume a lack of noise is a lack of certainty. They believe that if you do not immediately fire back at an insult, you have surrendered. But Stoicism offers a much deeper strategy for the elite mind. Marcus Aurelius taught that the most effective revenge you can take is to simply refuse to be like the person who wronged you. This is not about destroying your enemy. It is about maintaining your own sovereignty. Imagine you are in a professional setting and a colleague attempts to undermine you with a subtle, passive-aggressive comment. Your biological instinct is to react, to defend, and to escalate the conflict to prove you are superior. Your heart rate begins to climb. and your mind starts constructing the perfect, cutting reply. But in that moment, if you react, you are predictable. And predictable people are easily manipulated by those who know their triggers. Silence is the restraint that prevents you from becoming a puppet in someone else's play. True power exists in the space between the stimulus and the response. When you stay silent during an act of disrespect, you create a psychological vacuum that forces the other person to confront their own behavior. They expected a fight, but they were met with a mirror. They will start to over-explain. They will reveal their own insecurities, and they will eventually expose their own strategy. Meanwhile, you remain a solid, unmoving object that cannot be shaken by the winds of petty drama. It is vital to understand that silence does not mean you are suppressing your emotions or becoming a robot. Stoicism is a process of filtration where you feel the anger. You acknowledge the heat in your chest, but you choose to process that energy rather than letting it leak out as noise. In the year 2025, this is a rare and dangerous skill. Everyone else is conditioned for instant outrage and immediate replies. But the one who can pause, I think, and calculate is the one who will always own the board. Silence also serves as a protective barrier for your future reputation. Words are permanent markers on the timeline of your life. And once they are spoken, they can never be retracted. How many relationships have been incinerated by a single sentence spoken in a moment of unchecked ego? How many career opportunities have vanished because of one emotional email? The Stoics understood that speech should be measured and deliberate, used only when it is more valuable than the silence it replaces. The second principle is silence before strategy. Most failures in this life do not occur because a person was incapable of doing the work. They occur because the person moved too fast without understanding the terrain. We see an opportunity and we jump. We receive criticism and we react. And later, we sit in the ruins of our decisions, wondering where we went wrong. Power over your own mind means having the power over your impulses, and impulse is the most expensive mistake a human can make. Strategic silence is the act of collecting data before making a move. While everyone else is rushing to show off their expertise, you are mapping the inconsistencies in the room. Think of a chess grandmaster, where the minutes of silence between moves are not empty space, but a period of intense mental simulation. They are asking what the opponent will do 3, 5, or 10 steps down the road. That silence is the difference between an amateur who is playing for fun and a master who is playing for dominance. In your own world, this might look like a period of 24 hours where you refuse to make a decision or announce a plan. No seeking of validation. No emotional discussions. Just quiet reflection and documentation. You will find that many of the so-called urgent opportunities that cross your path will dissolve once they are subjected to the light of quiet analysis. Sometimes, the strongest move on the board is to stay exactly where you are and let the chaos of the world resolve itself. Today, the digital algorithm rewards speed, but the ancient laws of mastery reward patience. When you talk too much, you leak your internal blueprints to people who have not earned the right to see them. You expose your fears and your triggers, giving others the tools they need to adjust their behavior to counter yours. When you are silent, however, you become unreadable and unpredictable. You become the quiet force that people cannot account for, which is the ultimate strategic advantage in any environment. The third principle centers on the idea that deep thinking means questioning yourself before you question the world. It is a common human flaw to avoid failure by avoiding the mirror. It is infinitely easier to blame your boss, your economy, your childhood, or the current political system for why you are not where you want to be. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that he would deal with arrogant and ungrateful people. But he also noted that they shared a nature similar to his own. He understood that the flaws we despise in others are often the ones we refuse to see in ourselves. Think about your last major conflict with another person. You likely spent hours replaying what they did wrong and how they disrespected you. But did you ask if your own ego was the one that escalated the situation? Did you ask if you were seeking the truth? Or simply seeking to be right? These are the brutal questions that most people avoid because they dismantle the comfortable lie of being a victim. The Stoics practiced nightly self-examination, which was a process of looking at the day with total, unblinking honesty. Where did you lose control of your tongue today? When did your emotions override your reason and cost you a moment of growth? This is not about self-hatred. It is about self-mastery. If you cannot examine your own failures honestly, you will never be able to improve intentionally. Most people justify and rationalize their mistakes until they have twisted the reality to fit their ego. In doing so, they sabotage their own evolution and condemn themselves to repeating the same cycles for the rest of their lives. Deep thinking is the process of confronting your blind spots and recognizing the filters of past pain that distort your vision. Perhaps your colleague was not disrespecting you. Perhaps you are simply hypersensitive due to past insecurities. When you blame the world, you remain a passenger. But when you question yourself, you reclaim the wheel. Emperors and generals throughout history assumed they were the common denominator in all their problems. And that mindset allowed them to adjust their own behavior to win where others lost. The fourth principle is to learn to think far beyond the immediate moment. Most people are living in a trap made of the next 5 minutes. They eat what feels good in the second. They say what feels powerful in the moment. And they quit what feels difficult the minute the friction begins. Then, they spend the next 5 years wondering why their life feels hollow and weak. They do not lack the brain power to succeed. They simply lack the perspective to see the ripples of their own choices. Marcus Aurelius advised us to confine ourselves to the present. But he meant we must control the decisions of the present because they are the only things that create the future. Every choice you make right now is either a brick in a monument or a hole in your own foundation. Most people see the first ripple of a decision, like the pleasure of eating junk food, but they are blind to the second ripple of poor health and the third ripple of a shortened lifespan. Deep thinkers are those who have trained their minds to see all three ripples simultaneously. Imagine your existence 1 year from this very day. If you continue to make the exact same micro decisions you are making now, where do you land? Are you more disciplined and stronger? Or are you just more comfortable and more stagnant? Thinking beyond the moment means stepping outside of your own biology and observing your life like a strategist. Identity is not forged in a single dramatic event. It is built in the repeated blank, quiet choices you make when you think no one is watching. The finality of compounding is a law that no human can escape. Small daily disciplines build an unshakable character over decades, while small daily weaknesses build a mountain of regret that eventually buries you. If someone disrespects you in public, your ego will demand an immediate win to save your pride. But if you think beyond that moment, you realize that a reactive outburst only validates their behavior and lowers your status. Staying calm builds a reputation for invincibility that lasts far longer than any temporary comeback. The fifth principle is that quiet wins always last longer than loud ones. Our modern culture is obsessed with the spotlight and the viral announcement, but the louder your victory, the heavier the target on your back becomes. Marcus Aurelius taught that a man should not fear death, but rather, he should fear never truly beginning to live. Real living is not about performing your success for a digital audience. It is about building something with absolute substance, even if the world never claps for you. Many people do not actually want to be successful. They want the appearance of success so they can be seen winning by others. But loud victories come with massive, invisible costs. Think of the people who win the lottery and announce it to the world. Suddenly, long-lost relatives and opportunistic predators emerge from the shadows, and the pressure to maintain an expensive lifestyle eventually crushes them. Contrast this with the individual who quietly builds wealth and capability over 20 years without ever needing to broadcast a single win. Quiet success provides you with the freedom to evolve and the safety to fail in private. When you win loudly, you create a standard that you are forced to maintain for the public eye, turning you into a prisoner of your own peak moment. But when you win in silence, you stay free. You can adjust your strategy, you can experiment with new ideas, and you can improve without the weight of public expectation or judgment. There is also a psychological benefit to this, as your dopamine remains tied to the actual work, not the praise for the work. The sixth principle is a simple yet difficult command. Do not announce the work while it is in progress. The moment you tell the world what you are building, you invite the doubt and the limited imagination of others into your internal space. Most people will try to project their own fears onto your vision, telling you that you are being unrealistic or that you should be careful, even if you believe you are immune to their opinions. Those seeds of doubt often resurface in the middle of the night when the work gets difficult. Marcus Aurelius did not suggest we talk about the virtues of a good man. He commanded that we simply be one. The results should be the only statement you ever need to make. When you announce your plans too early, your brain receives a premature dopamine reward that tricks it into thinking the task is already complete. This is why so many people talk about writing a book or starting a business, but never actually finish the first chapter or the first prototype. They spent the energy on the announcement instead of the execution. Real builders understand that execution is the only currency that matters. They don't talk about their diet. They just transform their physique. They don't talk about their spiritual journey. They just manifest a calmer and more focused presence. This purity of action filters out the ego, because when you are not seeking applause, you are forced to love the work for the sake of the work itself. This humble approach keeps you sharp and prevents you from becoming complacent on the path to mastery. The seventh principle is to leverage the strategic advantage of being underestimated. Most individuals are terrified of being seen as less than they are, and they spend an enormous amount of energy trying to prove their intelligence and their worth to everyone they meet. But if you are comfortable with your own value, you realize that being underestimated is one of the greatest gifts you can ever receive. When people think you are not a threat, they lower their guard and reveal their true nature to you. Throughout the history of warfare and business, major upsets occurred because one side was completely dismissed as a non-factor. The opponent did not prepare, they did not study, and they assumed victory was guaranteed. This underestimation created the exact opening needed for a total and decisive strike. If you spend your time trying to convince the world how powerful you are simply showing your hand and allowing others to prepare for you. But when you are quiet, you are a ghost that the world cannot plan for. This mindset also serves as a filter for your social circle. People who treat you poorly because they underestimate your potential are not individuals you want in your inner sanctum anyway. Their shallow judgment reveals their own lack of perception. By remaining quiet and excellent, you allow the results to speak for you when the time is right. The shock of your eventual success will be devastating to those who ignored you, and far more rewarding for you because you won on your own terms. The final principle is to win without ever needing the applause of the crowd. The ultimate test of a person's character is what they do when there is zero chance of being recognized for it. Can you maintain your standards when no one is watching? Can you do the right thing when there is no social credit to be gained? The greatest minds in the history of our species spent their lives answering yes to these questions. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he could leave this life at any moment. And that reality should determine what he did and thought. Most people in 2025 are addicted to the drug of validation. They need a witness to their struggle to feel that the struggle has meaning. But if you require an audience to keep going, you are not driven by a purpose. You are driven by an ego. Achievements that are fueled by the need for praise will always crumble the moment the room goes quiet. To truly win, you must build a life that is meaningful to you, based on internal standards that are far higher than anything the world expects of you. Winning without applause means you have achieved true freedom from the opinions of others. You are no longer a slave to the fickle winds of public approval. You are the author of your own story, and the only judge whose opinion truly matters at the end of the night. This independence of spirit is the foundation of a Stoic life, and it is the only way to find a peace that cannot be taken away by the world. Master the art of silence. Think with a depth that terrifies the shallow, and win with a precision that leaves the world wondering how you did it. Rise tomorrow morning and own your day before the world has the chance to tell you how to feel. Remember that philosophy is not a subject to be studied in a classroom. It is a weapon to be used in the arena of your daily existence. Rise with the discipline of the ancients and become the master of your own internal empire. The journey to mastery is long and lonely, but every silent step you take brings you closer to a power that noise can never achieve. Master your silence, and you will eventually master your world. Go forth, be silent, think deep, and win quietly. Master these 8 principles, and you will find a clarity of purpose that most humans will spend their entire lives searching for, but never find. Post your commitment in the comments now, and tell the world that you are the quiet storm. Brise, and let the excellence of your results be the only voice that speaks your name.